Welcome to Tales from Timber Creek, a place where stories flow as gently as the wind through the pines. Settle in, unwind, let your mind wander. Here you'll find original stories told in a calm, soothing voice, paired with peaceful, rustic ambiance, crackling fires, whispering trees, and the quiet rhythm of the creek. Whether you're looking to relax after a long day, drift off to sleep, or simply escape into meaningful storytelling, this channel offers a tranquil retreat from the noise of everyday life. Each tale is crafted to slow your thoughts, spark your imagination, and bring a sense of stillness and reflection. So take a deep breath and stay a while. The Man Who Chased the Horizon. In a quiet valley where the wind moved softly through the tall pines and the mornings carried the scent of earth and sap, there lived a craftsman named Eli. No roads led directly to his home, only a winding trail worn gently into the land by time and footsteps. Those who found their way there rarely did so by accident, and those who left carried something with them they couldn't quite explain. Eli worked with wood. Not the kind freshly cut or bought in neat, measured boards, but wood that had already lived a life. Fallen branches, storm-split trunks, roots twisted beneath the soil. He would walk through the forest for hours, sometimes days, searching not for perfection, but for character. Wood remembers, he once told a traveler. You just have to listen long enough to hear what it's saying. His workshop was simple. A small, open-sided structure beside his cabin. Sunlight filtered through the trees and danced across his tools, chisels worn smooth from years of use, a mallet darkened with age, blades sharpened not just by stone, but by habit. And in that quiet space, Eli carved. He carved bowls that felt warm before they were ever touched, figures that seemed to breathe if you looked long enough, scenes of forests, rivers, and mountains, captured not as they were seen, but as they were felt. Travelers would sometimes pass through the valley. They'd pause, drawn by the soft rhythm of Eli's work, the steady tap of wood against steel, like a heartbeat echoing through the trees. They would watch in silence at first. Then eventually someone would ask, "How long have you been doing this?" Eli would shrug gently. "Long enough to know I've just begun." They'd laugh, thinking it was a joke. But Eli never laughed with them. Instead, they would ask the question that always followed. Why stay here? Why not take your work to the city? People would pay anything for this. You could be known, respected, even famous. Eli would pause, not because he didn't understand the question, but because he'd heard it so many times it had lost its urgency. He'd wipe his hands on a cloth, glance towards the distant hills, and say quietly, "I'm still chasing the horizon." Most didn't understand. Some assumed he meant opportunity. Others thought he was speaking in riddles, the way solitary people sometimes do. But no one pressed further, because each evening, just before the sun began to fall, Eli would set down his tools and leave. He followed a narrow path leading out of the valley, up toward a hill that overlooked everything below. It wasn't a steep climb, but it was steady, and Eli walked it with intention as though each step mattered. At the top, he would stand, not sit, not wander, just stand, and watch. The sky would begin its slow transformation, blue fading into gold, gold deepening into amber, and finally into a quiet, fading red. The light would stretch across the land, touching the trees, the river, the distant hills, until it reached that far-off line where the earth met the sky, the horizon. Eli's eyes never left it. Every evening as the sun slipped behind that unreachable edge, he would whisper the same words, "Tomorrow, I'll reach you." And every morning, before the mist had fully lifted from the valley, Eli would prepare for the journey. He packed lightly, a small satchel, a bit of water, and always his carving tools, just in case. He would set out towards the horizon with quiet determination. The first part of his journey was familiar. The valley opened into fields, the fields gave way to thicker forest, and the forest slowly thinned as the land stretched outward. But Eli never made it far. Not because the path was difficult, not because he lost his way, but because somewhere along that path he would always find something. A branch curved just so. A piece of driftwood smoothed by time and water. A broken limb, scarred by lightning, but still holding strength. When he saw it, truly saw it, he couldn't ignore it. He would stop, kneel beside it, run his fingers across its surface as though greeting an old friend. Then, without hesitation, he would sit and begin to carve. Hours would pass like moments. The world would quiet around him. The rhythm would return. Tap, tap, tap. Carve. Pause. Breathe. And when he finally looked up, the sun would already be descending. The horizon no closer than it had been before. This happened again and again. Days became seasons, seasons became years. Eli's journey towards the horizon stretched across time, but never quite across distance. And yet something else was happening. The pieces he carved along the way didn't remain where they were made. Travelers found them. A woman discovered a small wooden bird resting on a stone and carried it home, placing it near her window. She later said it made her feel less alone. A farmer came across a carved bowl beside a stream and began using it every morning. He swore his meals tasted better, though nothing else had changed. A child found a small figure tucked into the roots of a tree, a figure that looked oddly like herself. She kept it for years and years. None of them knew who had made these things, but they felt something in them, something steady, something real. Back in the valley, Eli's own work slowly spread as well. Visitors came more often, not in crowds, but in a steady, quiet stream. Some came searching. Others arrived by accident, but they all left carrying something. Sometimes a carving, sometimes just a feeling they couldn't name. And still they asked him, "Why don't you leave this place? Why not go where more people can see your work? Why keep chasing something you can never reach?" Eli always gave the same answer. "I'm still chasing the horizon." One evening, as the air carried the first hint of autumn, Eli climbed the hill as he always did. But this time he wasn't alone. An old traveler stood at the top, leaning on a worn walking stick. His clothes were simple, his face lined with years, but his eyes were sharp, clear, and quietly observant. Eli nodded in greeting and took his place beside him. They stood in silence as the sun began its descent. After a while, the traveler spoke. "You've been coming here a long time." Eli looked at him. "Yes." "And yet," the traveler continued, "you never seem any closer." Eli smiled faintly. "No, I suppose I don't." The traveler tapped his stick lightly against the ground. "Tell me," he said, "what happens when you finally reach it?" Eli hesitated. It was a simple question, but no one had ever asked it before. I don't know," he admitted. "I just know I need to try." The traveler nodded slowly. Then he chuckled, not unkindly, but with the quiet amusement of someone who had seen something many times before. "The horizon," he said, "is not a place you arrive." Eli frowned slightly. "It's a direction," the traveler continued. "A guide. Something that pulls you forward without ever letting you stop." Eli turned to look at him. "Then I've been chasing something impossible?" The traveler shook his head. "No," he said. "You've been following something essential." He gestured towards Eli's hands. "Look at you." Eli did. His hands were rough, scarred, and steady. They carried the marks of years spent working, not just wood, but time itself. Now look behind you, the traveler said. Eli turned. The valley stretched out below, bathed in golden light. Homes scattered among the trees, smoke rising gently from the chimneys. Paths winding quietly through their land. It looked alive. But there was something more, something deeper. Eli saw pieces of himself in it, in the homes, in the objects. In the quiet, unseen ways his work had settled into the lives of others. What you thought were interruptions, the traveler said softly, were the very path you were meant to walk. Eli's chest tightened. All those times you stopped, the traveler continued, you believed you were falling behind. Eli nodded slowly. But you weren't, the traveler said. You were building something that doesn't live at the horizon. He paused. It lives along the way. The sun slipped lower. The horizon burned with color. But for the first time in years, Eli wasn't looking at it. He was looking at everything else. That night, he didn't say his usual words. He didn't promise to reach it tomorrow. He simply stood and understood. The next morning, Eli still packed his tools. He still stepped onto the path. He still walked towards the horizon. But something had changed. He no longer walked with urgency. He no longer measured his progress by distance. And when he found a piece of wood along the way, he smiled and he stopped. Because he finally understood. The horizon was never something to catch. It was something that kept him moving. But the meaning, the real meaning, was always in what he chose to do along the way. You see, the destination may guide you, but it's the moments you stop, create, and give along the way that define who you become and what you leave behind.